Hi, I'm Joe Polizzi, and this is the Content Inc. podcast. 5 minutes every Monday for content creators who desire to be content entrepreneurs. Typically with podcast ads, there's a coupon code used to track engagement. You may have noticed the Lulu ads on this podcast haven't provided any codes at all. That's because creating an account and using Lulu is absolutely free. On top of publishing for free, you're on track to earn more, as books are among the top 3 most profitable tactics to monetize your content. Turning your content into a printed book with Lulu has never been easier. Create a free account today at lulu.com. As I record this, we're a week away from the United States holiday of Thanksgiving. Lots can be said, but my goal for this week is to notice more things and to be extra thankful for the small things that I take for granted, and I take a lot of things for granted. I understand how blessed I am, but I don't think I pause enough to see it and appreciate it, and then seek out the people responsible for it and thank them. Anyway, as it relates to this Content Inc. podcast, I'm thankful for you. This podcast began in 2014 as a marketing effort for the initial version of the Content Inc. book, and it worked beyond my expectations, and I continued to produce the podcast. If you're a longtime listener, you remember that I stopped producing episodes at the end of 2017 to take a 1-year sabbatical, and that was episode 200. Then, on March 12th of 2020, I started the Content Inc. podcast up again with episode 201. In looking this up, I didn't realize that was the same week as the world shut down for COVID. I have no idea why those dates line up. And now, here we are almost 4 years later. As they say, time flies. Now this week, I want to talk about making decisions to be different. If I had to pick an issue over the past 2 months where content creators have been struggling the most, it's absolutely this issue. I'm running into all these different examples that are, in fact, all doing the same things incorrectly, in my opinion. In one case, there is a super successful marketing agency owner who's writing a book. In another agency example, the group has launched a brand new podcast. In the third example, a marketer who left their job to go full-time content entrepreneur just launched a marketing-related newsletter. I'd love to give you specifics, but here's what I can tell you. In the book example, just picture any kind of vanilla marketing book you've ever seen. That's what I'm talking about. In the podcast example, just think of every marketing agency podcast out there that no one really notices or listens to. In the newsletter example, just think of another AI newsletter that 1,000 people have launched since November of 2022. I always hate being the bearer of bad news. I'm the one that has to tell each of these incredibly smart people that their odds of being successful are slim to none. Now, hard to believe, but sometimes I'm wrong. Vanilla can sell. Sometimes there is an amazing personality selling the vanilla. Sometimes a guest on the podcast can make waves and help the show go viral, whatever that means. Sometimes exceptional marketing like SEO know-how or partnerships can truly help promote the newsletter. But you have to be perfect with your distribution strategy for a vanilla content concept to succeed. Now, in general, here's what I would recommend. First, you can't create content to everyone in your audience group. You have to choose. If you go wide, you'll never be specific or relevant enough to break through. In the agency book example, this person has to choose one of the 6 types of customers they target. Is it for SMBs? Is it for mid-market? Is it enterprise? Is it B2B? Is it B2C? Is it nonprofit? You get it, right? It's very hard to break through if it's for everyone. Remember, you can't boil the ocean here. The smaller the audience target, the more likely the thing you are creating could be the informational guide for that audience. Now, second, you need to be niche of a niche. For the podcast example, does anyone really need another marketing podcast with guests? There are, 1,000 of these? All with a head start on you. Now, this isn't right, but instead of a marketing podcast, maybe it's a direct-to-consumer, retail-oriented podcast for online-only brands. That might not even be enough. Maybe it's for CMOs of those brands. Maybe it's only for the toy category. Basically, we need to get to a point where you look at it and say, yeah, if we do the work and we consistently deliver great content over a long period of time, we can be the leading source of information on that topic. It's important to keep in mind, content fails when, number one, it's not consistent, and number two, it's not differentiated. Those are the two biggest things. Who cares if you're consistent if you don't have something different to say? Now, perhaps you're struggling with this. I make the same mistakes, by the way, which is why we just changed Creator Economy Expo to Content Entrepreneur Expo. The first one was way too broad. It would have never worked. But sometimes it's hard to see, especially if you put your heart and soul into this thing. Take some time to look at your content brands. Are you different enough? I hope that's helpful, and I'll talk to you next Monday. Until then, have a wonderful week with your friends and family.